All right, so welcome to room 301. If you're here to hear Bindu talk about framework for automating and measuring usage-based optimization, you're in the right room. And everyone can hear. All right, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, all. Thank you for coming to my session on framework for automating and measuring your usage-based optimization. As briefly he mentioned, I am Bindu Sharma. It's not working. I'll stand like this. Maybe that will help. Yeah. Okay. I am Bindu Sharma. I started my career as a software engineer. Then I moved on to technical program management roles. And then I started my cloud journey about 5 years ago with the Trellix, formerly known as FireEye. I was tasked during that role to find out the wasted cost in our cloud and eliminate that cost and also set up some governance around our cloud usage. Our cloud footprints are mostly on AWS. So most of the optimization activities that we perform are in AWS. We use Cloud Health for visibility into cost and usage and getting some budget information and also some allocation done to the application owners to different BUs. We have a fairly mature FinOps practice established. We have Cloud Center of Excellence working fine. We have Cloud Business Office, which is a centralized place for any centralized reservation, approval, and buyout for cost optimization, governance, budgeting, forecasting, and allocation decisions, and also for consulting on those decisions. We have, as you are in this session for the automation, automation is working in non-production environments since the beginning of this year. So we can proudly say that we are in the run journey of our cloud adoption. A quick look at the agenda. I'll walk through the areas which the services and the spend that we can utilize for automation. A quick and a detailed overview of the automation framework that is deployed in FireEye. And that is the custom automation. But if you want to come up with the ideas or more understanding on how we can semi-automate without setting up the custom automation, I'll walk you through some of those initiatives. And then how to make your case on setting up, on how to set up the automation, how to make your case for the effort and the money involved in that initiative. And last one, how to measure it through dashboarding. So how do we look at the different opportunities in our cloud spend? Out of the box, the cloud service providers, they already give us some areas of optimization, like buying a bulk discount or getting a rate cards, buying some reserve instances. Then the semi-automation part I talked about is where you can monitor and use and leverage the cloud service provided services and find out the areas of optimization. And the last one is when you do self-monitoring of your usage, that is the very good candidate for automation. Now, how do we identify the areas? From the AWS perspective, I leverage the Trusted Advisor reports. Now, they have their own set criteria that they send the automatic utilization reports to us. I also use Cloud Health reports, setting up some policies, and then getting the utilization and the spend metrics around the whole cloud spend. And the other area is if you can employ some unit economics. You can look at the spend on how many services are you using and which are the highest spender, which are the services where you spend the most money on. You can categorize it by a business unit or by an environment, by a particular product. But to calculate the unit economics, it assumes that you have a very good tagging governance set up in your cloud infrastructure. Now, once we have identified the services that we want to look at based on different metrics, how do we prioritize them? What we employed in FireEye is using the effort versus impact analysis. The services where you will spend the littlest of efforts, but you get most of the impact. We call it in our FinOps terminology as the low-hanging fruits. Start with those. One area to note here is the middle column on the criteria. Make sure, as a FinOps practitioner, you collaborate with your cross-functional teams to come up with this criteria. This is a custom criteria for an organization. I talked about in the previous slide reports coming out of Trusted Advisor. That is their criteria that they send us the underutilization reports on. So make sure you socialize it with, get the sponsorship, and maybe publish it in Confluence page in your central repository so everyone can come and refer it in the later days. Now, once the area of the services are identified, they are prioritized, we put it in the 4 quadrant of impact versus effect analysis, and we know that rightmost top quadrant is where we should focus on. So we have identified the areas to automate. Now, this is a very good time to start thinking about dashboarding. Create some baseline metrics to track. What we have done is, because in the beginning, that is the most impact you will make when you set up the automation, realize the most savings, so you want to show that off. So in the beginning, you see the spend is high, but the savings is not that in the same average. So what you do, you need to bring it to their attention, and then after we have deployed it and it's working, you see in the beginning, it has achieved a steady state. Also, what we do is set up an efficiency target. So what it catches is that your savings from the underutilized initiatives is always set at certain target, and lower it is, that means you are doing the best job. There is very less spend, very less waste that is happening in your cloud spend. Now on the automation framework, so this is the framework that is currently deployed in FireEye and it's working. Another aspect we all know as a FinOps practitioner is the communication. So we need to make sure the automation, it's a destructive operation. It is detected once and it is deleted. So you need to make sure you communicate and over-communicate. Again, publish it in the Confluence, go into different meetings that you go to, make sure it is very well known that this will be the workflow. On the first of the month, we will review our cloud spend, our cloud usage, identify all the violating resources based on the criteria that we have set. We will inform the account owners that, okay, these are the violating resources which will be impacted. Now, you mark it with a delete tag so that you can identify those particular resources. And in the upcoming week, then email is sent out again, so they are notified, it's in front of them, and they are in the know that some resources are going to be impacted. On the last day of the month, those resources that are deleted with the special tag will be remediated, but we have given them an option that if you want to ignore a particular resource, although it is underutilized, but engineers do come back that I know this, but can we keep it? So we ask them to mark it with a special tag, and the automation should ignore it and then delete the rest of the violating resources. Again, I cannot stress this enough that please communicate it so they know that what is coming. Now, on the real infrastructure deployment details, one prerequisite here is I talked about the email notifications being sent to the application owners. So it sends out, first of all, it sets up the SNS subscription for all these account owners, and they need to confirm that, okay, we will be receiving these notifications. It begins with, if you notice here, I have set up a cron job for the first of the month that invokes the Lambda function. I have identified 8 services for this automation framework, and there is a separate Lambda function for each of these. Quick note, it's a Lambda function, so we are saving on the implementation cost also. We are losing the less compute power. And it identifies violating resources. It stores the copy of that analysis report into a bucket, and at the same time, on the first day of the month, it will send an email out to the account owners. In our case, the account owner is an alias, so there are multiple people, not just one. So if an email goes to, and if it sits in the one-person email account, and maybe they are on PTO, and they do not take a look at it, it's a destructive operation, it will delete it. So it's always an alias. Multiple people are receiving the violating resources email. A quick look at how the email looks that they receive. Point to note here is they are assigned with that special automated delete tag, and if they want to ignore it, they are assigned with the ignore tag. And also the cost that they are saving by deleting that particular resource. Now, these are, for different people, it's a different kind of motivation. Let's say from this, maybe engineering leaders, they can see how much they are saving with this initiative, and they can push engineers that, okay, we'll be saving this much, why don't, it's okay to delete, and go ahead with it. Then in the subsequent weeks, every week, the email is sent out to the same alias. And at the end of the week, at the end of the month, the last day, delete program runs, and it will delete all those violating resources except the one that are tagged with the special tag. A quick look at, again, a delete one. It has the IDs of the resources that are deleted and the same cost information. And also I put it in the S3 bucket for auditing purposes in later time, so it is archived as well. A quick note here that I have deployed it in the non-production environment only. But if you want to be aggressive and want to go ahead with the production deployment, then I just want to make sure I bring it up. Is that maybe 2 good suggestion. In the SNS notification that we are setting up as a prerequisite, make sure you get the acknowledgement from the alias people or the account owner that they have seen and they are subscribing to it. So we can assume that they will see these deletion and the analysis emails. And another thing I would mention is an email is sent out with the identified resources. So make sure they acknowledge that although we are asking them to tag those resources with a special tag, but they acknowledge the other ones that it's okay to delete. So put some gatekeeping there, so FinOps practitioners should not get in trouble. With that, now let's talk about, that was the custom automation that I talked about, that we have deployed and it's working. So far, no trouble in non-production account. But let's discuss some of the areas where we can leverage the cloud provider services and tools and semi-automate part of those so that it makes our job easier for usage optimization. Start with budget alerts and actions. We can set up the budget alert at different thresholds, and when those thresholds are breached, The user is notified, so they have understanding that how they are spending their monthly spend. And again, you want to go aggressive, set up the actions, and they will not be allowed to spin up any new resources if they go over budget. A KPI that we are tracking here is the daily usage rate, and this comes in very handy at the end of the year for forecasting purposes, how the particular BU was performing, how many times they did go over budget, or did they go under budget, so we know next time what they ask for it need to be scrutinized. I have set up the cloud health budget here, and point to note here is we are only on the 18th of the month, but the business unit has already exhausted 90% of their current spend, so they are definitely projected to go over budget by the end of the month. So hopefully this is a good motivation for the engineer to delete and release some wasted spend that is out there in their cost center, and before going ahead and asking for more budget. The other area is the scheduler. This comes in very handy. I have seen, at least in our case, we have seen about 8 to 10% of savings, because this, what I like about this particular tool is that you set it once and it stays with the life of the instance. You don't have to do anything. It is set up once and then it just stays there, and then it's switching off the instances during non-working hours, again agreed upon with the application owners or the BUs, and again communicated well enough in your Cloud Center of Excellence meetings. The other one is modernizing. You can leverage the cloud provided APIs or SDK or CLI and write a very simple custom script, and you can find out from your cloud footprints that how many of them are using the older generation, and if you ask them with the recommendation move to a newer generation, you will start saving 15% in your cloud spend. Similarly, migrating from GP2 to GP3, this is the easiest cloud saving we have done quickly, and it is off the bat 20% cost savings. The others are the cost anomaly detection. We have used these to find out if there is any uptick in our cost, or if there is an instance where we are not expecting that uptick. A good example that we got from this setup was the recursive Lambda, and for two different BUs, since this is deployed beginning of the year, and same problem with both the BUs, that they had started their maybe testing or performance testing over the weekend, and there was a bug in their Lambda function, and it went into recursive mode, and it was using all the compute. And so we can save those kind of instances by setting the anomaly detection. Other one is cloud health rapid cost increase alert. So I have set up this policy. If the cost goes higher by 10% from the previous day, you look at it and find out if this is an acceptable change in the spend, or there was again some issue found, and it can be looked at. The other areas is manage your non-production account. So this is like a housekeeping kind of initiative. Maybe run it every 3 months or so. That's what we do. A good example are sandbox accounts. Clean those up. Sales teams, they ask for some POC accounts, and then do not worry about it once the POC after the quarter end is done. So just housekeeping, and it also keeps your cloud infrastructure clean. The on-demand instances, recommend to move to Spot, or even save more, moving to serverless, or if they can change their instance type to reuse if you have any unused reserve capacity. S3 storage lens, the multi-part upload incomplete multi-part upload is very well captured through this tool. We have used it, and when you do the multi-part upload setup, and if it is incomplete, you cannot find it out from S3 console. AWS does not have any S3 API to detect the multi-part upload. So this comes in very handy. Compute optimizer, again, to find out any unused compute or idle capacity. It comes in very handy. It comes with the recommendation, leverage that. And Cost Explorer, I use it for recommendation on instances, Elastic Cache, OpenSearch, and also to track the utilization of our reserved instances. And good thing about is you can set up the SNS on CloudWatch events, and that's how you semi-automate and make your life easier. There are so many tools, there are so many ways that you can look at your spend and optimize it. So use these kind of capability offered by the cloud service provider so it makes your life easier. Cloud health automation. I talked about the criteria when we identified that, okay, these are the services that we want to look at. So what we did is we leveraged the cloud health automation. They offer, for some limited services, they offer to automate the remediation of those resources that are identified. So good point to note here is that make sure your communication is very clear, that the resource will be deleted on this day or at the end of the month, and maybe you can give some recommending actions that, what you can do if you want to save your particular resource. Now, the other thing here is the criteria that we described. Not all the services we were able to leverage in Cloud Health. So this is not that I use completely automated whatever we decided and then move to custom automation. So there are some limitations that you need to be aware of. Good thing is it comes with the attachment identifying an ID of a resource. So it comes in handy for engineer to just run their update their DevOps script to tackle, in this case, snapshot ID. If they want to save it, attach it to the volume. Now, how do you make a case for custom automation to the stakeholders and to your Cloud Center of Excellence team? I'll walk you through what we went through. We automated 8 services. It took, by the DevOps engineer, it took 12 weeks. Now, this includes the time to develop those Lambda scripts, to identify the violating resources, setting up the Git repository of our code, and also integrating it with our account provisioning account factory. So what I mean by that is any new upcoming accounts that we will provision, the automation framework will already be set up for any of these upcoming new accounts. The project timeline is 5 months because we know it takes time to communicate, go into and tell all the stakeholder, all the teams that what is upcoming. It also taking time to create the business case, publishing the business case into Confluence page. So that's why the time period to complete the project was 5 months. We have been realizing 10% cost savings month over month since the deployment. And I have recouped the investment that we have made in terms of dollars in 4 months. Coming back to show the impact that your automation is bringing, we saw these couple of graphs in the previous slides. One thing I want to bring to your attention is the last part of the bar graph. We do see that the spend is increasing. Now, it could be good thing. Most of the time, it's a good thing. Business is growing. But you notice the potential savings or the spend that is wasted is staying constant. So my efficiency metrics is on track. Other areas is at the top, where I'm measuring some KPI, month over month, quarter over quarter, how much is this savings from the effort and how much we are spending. So I have walked you through the framework that we have deployed. Some takeaways here are automation. It saves you the operation cost, but it's a destructive operation. So please communicate as much as you can. And it sets up a repeatable process for remediation of any underutilized resources. And automation, the framework that I've showed with the workflow and with the infrastructure, it can be leveraged for any cloud. It's not that it's specific to AWS. So you can take the design and you can implement it your way. If you want to continue the conversation, I will be available at these two spots during the summit. And I think that's, yeah.
Thank you, Bindu. That was great.
Thank you.
We'll open it up to questions. Yeah. Do you want to go?
Sure. Hey, so thank you so much for the run through. I was curious, since a lot of these are destructive actions, like how do you report back, say like end of the year, this is how much money the automation was able to save? Like if you're terminating all these, are you putting them else somewhere to report on later in terms of potential savings? Like how do you report back now that the resources are missing? Because like the bill for EBS could go down for various reasons.
Yes,
Right.
definitely. So if you remember in the infrastructure slide, I said I'm capturing the cost with each resource that is going to be impacted when the automation is run. So we are capturing all that data and putting it in Excel and then calculating to, again, yeah, that part is not automated. But I want to make sure to capture it. So with the DevOps engineer, that was one of the requirements. Make sure we capture what we are, just to show what impact you are making. Yes.
So you're saying like, if we terminate these resources, we'll save $1,000 a month, and then you essentially just report on that.
Yes. Because if you looked at the different services, we have good coverage except networking on compute, on storage and such. So yes, we can categorize them by that as well. But yes, that.
I think there was
in
a question
nutshell.
over here too.
So for your alert or your anomaly detection and alerting, are you only looking at cost metrics or anything else around usage? And then how do you balance the noise to alert ratio? And I've got a follow-up.
Okay, sure. So your first question, it is established for a service and at a BU. Now, not all BU, just in the beginning when I said when you are thinking for the analysis is the costliest BUs. So in my case, for 5 BUs and about 8 services. So that's how it is set up and the criteria is by the percentage of spend and also the specific dollar amount. Now dollar amount for a particular service and percentage spend for a BU. Now in terms of the noise, yes, we have to do back and forth when the anomaly is detected, reaching out, first of all doing some digging in and find out what is impacted. Reaching out to the BU, reaching out to the application owner, and then they have to spend time to understand the anomaly and then go back. So it just cadence of following up. If I don't hear back in 24 hours, I go back again politely.
Sure. And so along those lines, when I noticed verbiage in your email notification that said, feel free to ignore this if you've already addressed it. Is there some underlying workflow or feedback loop to ensure that all anomalies are understood, or that the actions are taken?
Okay, all anomalies are understood, yes. We look at each and every anomaly. I showed the 10%, but we have set up for 5% also. So we do look at each and every anomaly. But I'm sorry, I forgot your second follow-up question.
Underlying workflow.
No, workflow, this is very manual. So that's why I have categorized these areas in semi-automation. These are not fully automated. It's wonderful. Yeah,
We
thank
got
you.
time for a couple questions. One here and one more.
In the email, you're calculating the cost save when you're deleting these instances. How are you calculating that? Is that on-demand spend? Or how are you coming up with that number?
They are, I mean, in our case, actually, we have coverage of our on-demand through reserve instances. We have coverage of more than 90%, and our utilization is 100%. So we are very good at in terms of that. But the calculation that you're asking about, I'm assuming it's all on-demand cost at that time.
All right, and then
Yeah.
I have one more question. If I buy you a beer, will you share us the Lambda code
Oh.
for automation?
It has to be more than that. I'm a wine lady.
Now we got one question back here.
You should look at my charm. It's a wine thing. Okay.
Okay, I think I'm the last question here. So
Sorry.
I see that you're using a distribution list, but it's really an email that's getting to everybody. How do you ensure accountability? Because people say, okay, there are 10 people on the distribution list. It's not me who has to react. How do we make sure that somebody is actually looking at those and actioning, whether it's yes or no?
So little bit of background on that, right? As a FinOps practitioner, I talked about communication and collaboration. In collaboration, we came up as a whole organization, came up with a criteria that this will be your criteria for a service. In communication, I said my project took 5 months. In all the cross-functional meetings that happens weekly, in cloud business office meetings, which happens monthly, cloud center of excellence meetings that happens quarterly, it is being communicated every time that this will happen, SNS will come, please confirm it is going to an alias. So make sure you assign a chaperone in your team, and it becomes a BU responsibility.
Thank you, Bindu. Let's a round of applause.
JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to FinOps.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.